Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey with Ed and Rose on 90 Day Fiancé. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a couples therapist. Let's see what happens and see if I have anything to say to this show.
Last night, Rose and I got into a big fight because I didn't tell her before I came on this trip that I don't want more kids. And then this morning, she told me it's over.
So that's not an accurate way that I would put it. The way I would tell it, Ed, is that she was very upset because you repeatedly hurt her, number one. Number two is that the issue of kids, yeah, you didn't tell her that you didn't want to have kids, but you specifically lied by omission, letting her believe that you did want to have kids because she talked about getting married to you and having kids, and you never said anything to the contrary. So it's not just that you didn't mention this one detail. It's much bigger than that. And this points to something is interesting about his personality that would make him spin that in a way in his own mind. In this show, we often see when they're in the conflict, they will say things that we'll go, whoa, yikes. But then when we see the interviews, when they're away from the other person, they've calmed down presumably, and they can say something more differentiated and more understandable.
It just hit me. I don't know, I'm just upset.
I feel really bad for Ed. I've tried to avoid internet commentary about these people because as I react, I want to be as clean as possible. But the little bit that I have heard is that a lot of people don't like Ed. It's fine. People can like and don't, they can like and not like whoever they want to like and not like. But I, as a therapist and really as a human being who's been around the block a few times, I've done things that I regret. I've felt horrible, like the way he feels right there. And I just feel for him. I feel bad for him. This tells me that I think for Ed, there is a normal human down there that really cares and loves and is worried about being alone and is lonely and feels worthless sometimes like the rest of us and is chasing love in the way that he feels like he can. And he has defenses that get in the way of him seeing the world the way other people see the world. Not everyone, but the way Rose sees the world anyway. I think his way of coping with it is to forge ahead as if other people don't have feelings or really apologize and try to get people back in your good graces. And that was the pattern that we saw. It ultimately doesn't work for him. And I'm guessing that if this is a personality trait of his, that he's done this with relationships in the past. Total speculation. There are other women in the past who would say, oh, I can totally relate to what Rose is talking about here. He disregards your feelings and then he acts like nothing happened but he's really nice and apologizes and then he wins you back and then he hurts you again. I don't know. It's just people tend to have similar relationship patterns. And why would you do that? Why would you do that if you wanted love? Well, there's got to be some schema at play and some overcompensation. Some defense that's trying to protect him from something. I don't know what that is. Maybe we'll get more data as the season progresses.
I failed. Again.
So there that is, what he said. I failed again. That points to, he's like, I did it again. That this isn't an isolated event.
Rose is out.
Rose is out.
Yeah, she's... No Rose. No love.
Rose. Oh. I'm so sorry. Things didn't work for you. It's for the best. It's for the best. You were so excited.
Yeah, I feel bad for him. I feel worse for Rose, honestly. I hope that Ed uses this time to reflect and say, what happened? Hopefully he watches the show and sees the pattern that he did. Maybe he'll even watch these videos. I don't know. Oh boy. Obviously, Ed, if you're watching, I'm speculating. I have no idea. I'd love to talk with you off the record, actually. I hope that he does. I hope he goes to therapy and says, hey, therapist, watch this show. Can you tell me what's going on? Why do I keep getting in these repetitive relationship situations where it doesn't work out for me? What a wonderful opportunity for the therapist to watch the show and to help him with that. I think that'd be a wonderful jumping off point where he could get in touch with why he exhibits or engages in those defenses that lead to the issues that we saw in this show. I've worked with people like him before. It can be done. It takes a long time.
So what happened with Rose?
I wanted to ask her to marry me and then bring her over on a K-1 visa. But I asked her, what she wants out of our relationship. And that's when she told me, she wanted 2 kids. I'm not even ready to be a father to Prince, let alone, father 2 more kids at 54 years old.
So I hope he's just phrasing that wrong, because he just said, I'm not ready to be a father to Prince, even though you were about to marry Rose. I hope he's just saying it was a bit of a stretch for me to be a father to Prince, let alone have other kids. But he worded that interestingly.
When I told her I didn't want more kids, that upset her. And I would ask her about her past, Mom, and she didn't want to talk about her past.
Yikes. Wait. I mean, it's been a lot of weeks since I've seen those episodes. He just mentioned the kids thing and the past thing. Let's do the kids thing, because that's pretty easy, because I said that earlier, which is, it's not that she was upset that you didn't want to have kids. I mean, obviously that was a deal breaker for her. The problem was, the whole time while you had been talking online, she was saying she wanted to marry you and have more kids, and you did not contradict that. You did not say, oh, whoa. Yeah, I want to get married to you, but I don't want to have kids with you. I don't want to have any more kids. You just let her believe, by not saying anything in the contrary, that you were totally on board with having more kids. So that's one thing. And he's not saying that. This is concerning, because other people on the show we've seen, when they get away and they're calmed down, they will say things that seem more differentiated. The other thing that he said right here is, she refused to tell me about her past. So he's still hung up on that detail that we thought they had worked out, where he had apologized for. I'm sorry, I totally trust you now. I should never have confronted you about your past boyfriends. I know I'm wrong in the STD test. I know I'm wrong. Now, on one level, I guess I kind of get it, because when you get dumped, which is essentially what happened, you're going to have some interesting perspectives. If you have ever talked to a friend who has recently broken up with their partner, and by recently, I mean while they're still having a lot of emotions about it, which could be months after, you're going to hear some weird perspectives. They're going to be like, she was a terrible person, even though you're like, I don't think she was a terrible person. I just don't think the two of you worked out. So maybe he's in that zone, but that's a very concerning thing to say, that he's still hung up on the idea that he was like, you have a lot of friends on Facebook, and who have you been with? And how many men have you had sex with? Not really because of an STD concern, because if it's an STD concern, then you both get tested. But that wasn't what was the main push of his communication, which was, I need to know if you've been with other people and who you've been with. And I know where that comes from. It comes from that it's controlling, but it comes from a place of worry that you're going to lose someone. This idea that, and it's totally illogical, right? That let's say she had 50 sexual partners prior to meeting Ed. It doesn't scientifically threaten their relationship. She could have liked a lot of one-night stands. What's wrong with that? And she could then decide, yeah, I'm done with that one-night stand thing, and now I want to be with Ed. It's totally a viable decision. By saying, she refused to tell me about her past. Well, what about the past did she, one, have to tell you about, in terms of like, you're entitled to that information, especially in the way you're asking. And two, what would it have meant? She intuited, look, if I tell him anything about my past, he's going to freak out, because he's already jealous of things that he's making up in his mind. So I'm just going to tell him, look, you're the one. And I believed her when she said that. You're the one for me. Please trust me. I'm with you. So I don't know, maybe he'll come around. They usually do a tell-all right at the end of the season. So maybe he'll get some more time to recover from the breakup, and he'll say some more differentiated things. So I guess we'll find out.
And I would ask her about her past, Mom, and she didn't want to talk about her past. And she would clam up, and, she kept telling me, my past is my past, and I don't want to talk about it. So, we got in a big fight, And in the end, it was too much for her, Mom. It was too many. She didn't think I trusted her. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so he seems to see it for what it was. It's true. She didn't feel like you trusted her. I wish there was more there, like, I got a problem with jealousy, Mom. I need to work on that. I would be much more encouraged with something like that.
Give yourself a little time and maybe be happy, move forward.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, Ed. That's my best advice I can give you.
God bless you, Mom. You seem like a nice person. That isn't the best advice you could have given him. You know, moving forward is probably what he's done his whole life and what has caused him, I'm guessing, to have a string of relationships like this. Total speculation. What the best advice you could say is go to a therapist and really investigate your part in those situations. What about your personality? What traumas were at play as you reenacted certain relationships with her? Sure, Rose made some mistakes. I get it. I don't think a lot of us would take that perspective, but a therapist could say that, sure, you know, but you deserve to explore yourself. That would be the best advice you could say.
I didn't listen to you. I didn't really understand why you're so upset.
I was upset that you're old enough to be her dad, and I was just like, what are you doing? 23? I'm 29. What do you have in common with her?
So again, it's very normal for family members to focus on the age difference. And as I always say, I looked into the empirical evidence on this and all the scientific literature and gave it a lot of thought myself. And there are some nuances there. Some people who are 23 are developmentally like a 17-year-old, blah, blah, blah. But in general, age differences like that are not by any means inherently a dysfunctional thing. And often in our society, we pathologize things like that. A 48-year-old dating a 24-year-old, you're twice her age. That's crazy. And it's like, well, what is crazy about it? Well, it's just wrong. Okay, tell me more. Well, you're at different points in life. You're at different stages of life. Okay, but lots of people are at different. You can have two 30-year-olds who are at completely different stages of their life. One could still be living at home with their parents, and the other could have 3 kids. Does that mean they can't get together? It's inherently dysfunctional? Well, there's a power differential. Okay, we could look at that. If there is a power differential there that someone's being exploited, let's look at that. But if that can be accounted for or people are aware of what's happening, then okay, then what? And people don't have a lot of things to say other than the things I've said and a few other dubious kinds of claims. Relationships are more complicated than that. I think what happens for people, and I've said this before, is that we all, for good reasons, worry about younger people being exploited by older people. We see this in 13-year-olds being exploited by 40-year-olds. Those situations we have determined, I think rightfully so, as universally pathological and a problem and illegal. So there are certain things that we see that are like, oh, age difference, that's bad. 2 13-year-olds together, yeah, that's fine. 2 13-year-olds that are dating, that's fine. But is it? Can two 13-year-olds engage in a controlling, abusive, exploitative relationship? Absolutely. Can a 24-year-old exploit a 48-year-old? Absolutely. Can a 24-year-old emotionally, physically, sexually abuse a 48-year-old? Absolutely. Can a woman physically and sexually abuse a man? Absolutely. It's usually the other way around, and it's usually, the age is usually a part of it too, but it's not always. So anyway, we have to look at these kind of situations case-by-case basis. Just the fact that someone is different in age doesn't automatically mean that there's something wrong with it. And I hope that I've been convincing in that way. I'm not trying to advocate for big age differences in relationships. I'm just trying to advocate for scientifically sound ways of looking at these sorts of things.
It was hard because you were blowing me off and essentially saying F you, like, I don't give a I'm just going to do whatever.
Okay, so we're getting a little bit of an insight into their dynamic. She felt thrown away as if she didn't matter. That's interesting.
I was selfish. And I'm sorry.
So this is exactly what he did with Rose. I'm speculating, but where he apologizes fully, seemingly, but doesn't really give the full picture as to this is why I did these things. Because without all of those other things, then we don't know that he's not going to do it again. I wonder if he has disappointed her and hurt her feelings many, many times, and this was just yet another time that he hurt her feelings. I have no idea. Maybe he's been the perfect father. I literally have no data.
One thing that I definitely wanted you to know is that you were and are and have always been the love of my life. And we have such a great foundation. And I did realize, well, I just probably flushed that all down the toilet.
It's eerie how similar this conversation is to his conversations with Rose. Now, I'm not going to pathologize that because I would have to have more information, but it sounds very similar. And his daughter is in her 20s, Rose is in her 20s. I'm not saying anything terribly nefarious here. There's a possibility that Ed has this issue where he bulldozes people and then they react and he's going to lose them, and then he apologizes in a severe way, and then he relaxes, and then he goes back and he bulldozes people again.
And that's what scared me the most. But for what it's worth, I'm sorry for not listening, to you. And the fact that I hurt you.
I appreciate that.
I'm human.
I know.
I'm a dumbass. I'm a human, funny dumbass.
I mean, I will give him credit for, I guess, taking responsibility for what he's done, but research has looked at the elements of a apology that is optimal. And he exhibits some of them, which is he's saying he's sorry, he's not blaming anyone else for what he did. But the elements he doesn't have in here is he's not identifying what he did exactly that was wrong. He's also not saying, here's what I'm doing to make sure this never happens again. He's also not saying, I know I do this to a lot of people. He's not doing any of those other things that usually are indicative of a really healthy apology.
It broke my heart. I spent a lot of time, a lot of money, but I just wanted to be happy. I wanted what every couple I see every day has. I want intimacy. I want love.
That's great, Ed, and you deserve that. And to get that, I suspect you need to go to therapy and really figure out what's going on for you and why you engage in these kinds of reactions. You deserve that too. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.